Rav Cardozo, you're known in your essays and books for being very controversial, but what's interesting is the way you're controversial is very respectful. You always disagree in a very, respectful way to the other opinion, and you even allow them to critique you back. In one of your books, you actually even put the responses of your critiques in your very book. So what I want to ask you is, in today's age, we really see two extremes when it comes to opinions. On the one hand, we have people who are very fundamentalists in their beliefs, that their beliefs are the only correct beliefs and everyone else is wrong, which is a type of extremism. And then the other extreme is people who say you're not allowed to disagree. You're not allowed to say something too strong. Everything is relative. You have to be PC, you have to be gentle. Don't ever tell someone so much your opinion because it could hurt them. And I feel like in your writings, you definitely walk the tightrope in between giving really intense, passionate beliefs, which do obviously offend people, but on the other hand, you deeply respect those people you disagree with. So, what is the balance between, on the one hand, passion, and on the other hand, respect and tolerance?
Yes, this is a very difficult question. I don't know if I have a very good answer to this. I don't know if such an answer actually exists. First of all, one of the beautiful things about the Jewish tradition and why the Jewish tradition is so attractive to me is the principle, of Elu ve'elu divrei Elokim Chayim. There is no such thing as one opinion. Even in the Halachic structure in the Talmud, you see that there are so many different opinions, which each of them have value. They stand for truth. It may be part of the truth, but enough truthful to be able to be respected and perhaps even to live by. But the moment that you have to make a decision between one truth and another truth, right, you are obviously taking sides. And as human beings, we're allowed to do that. But we must know that when we do that, there is an other side. I cannot say I am right when I follow Beit Shammai or Beit Hillel, and anybody else who follows the other is wrong. That, to me, is very beautiful. I don't know if there is any other religious tradition which has this concept that because God is God, there are so many ways to Him, and there are so many ways of serving Him, that Elu ve'elu divrei Elokim Chayim, these and those are the words of the living God, means that I have different options how to live my life. And that also means that if when I decide on one of them, and I will have to decide, right? William James once said, not to make a decision is also a decision, right? And that's true. Here it is that I take a decision, I do it my way, and at the same time I have to respect that somebody else will follow another way. But there are limits. The limits are obviously when you get into moral problems. I can be tolerant, but how far can my tolerance go? Anti-Semitism, I can't be tolerant about. Abuse, I can't be tolerant about. And there are many other things. Nazism, I can't be tolerant about. There is a moment when I say, I'm very sorry, I become a fundamentalist, if that's the right word, because this is absolutely unacceptable, because if I would even tolerate that, I would make society even more painful and destroy society with that. On the other side, tolerance, there's a very interesting thing about it. I have it in front of me over here. Ogden Nash, a famous poet, once said the following words. I read it slowly. Sometimes with secret pride I sigh, how tolerant am I? Then I wonder, what is really mine? Tolerance or a rubber spine? And that is indeed the other side of the problem of tolerance. There are many people, and I meet them quite frequently, who say, oh, I am very tolerant. What they are really telling me is that they have no spine, that they don't care less. And that has nothing to do with what it means to be tolerant. Tolerant means to say that I accept somebody else's view, even when I disagree with that, and understand that there may quite well be truth behind that, and I have therefore to respect it, even when I may disagree. But, and here I come to Isaiah Berlin, the great Russian English philosopher, who said that in all these matters there is an issue of what he calls a trade-off. A trade-off means to say so much justice and so much mercy. Do justice and mercy always go together? No. If I'm only going by justice, I throw mercy out. If I only am merciful, justice may pay the price. So he therefore says the only way of living your life is a trade-off. A little bit of this and a little bit of that, and that is a compromise. Now, the problem with this attitude is, also I fully understand that attitude is that he continues to say, and I can't remember the exact quote, so once you have made up your mind to do something, you must be, he doesn't use that word, but that is what he is basically saying, you have to become a fundamentalist about this. And then the critique on Berlin was, why should I become a fundamentalist about something I'm not sure about? And there's the problem. There is the problem. And I don't know what the answer to that problem is. I want to tell you here something very interesting. I also wrote once about this. There was a cardinal in England in the 18th century, 19th century, by the name of Cardinal Newman. Very famous man, tremendous brain, who was a cardinal. He was the head of the Anglican, the English church. At a certain moment, he decided that he no longer believed in the theology of that church, and he wanted to become a Catholic. And that's what he did. And he turned away from the English church, and he became a Catholic, and he became a very famous bishop, or cardinal, better. So he was once asked, John Newman, I think, there's also a name there. Why did you not take a position between these two churches? By that you could have created unity between the two of them, and that would have done a lot of good, because then these churches would not oppose each other so much. So he said a remarkable word, which I never forget. He said, yes, it is true, I could have done that. But he said, there is one thing more important than unity, and that is personal conscience. I have to look in the morning in the mirror and say, am I honest with myself? And if I'm going to compromise between this church and that church to find a way in between, while I really believe that the Catholic Church is right and the English Church is wrong, I'm no longer living with a personal conscience which is absolutely honest. And I was not prepared to do that. I found that incredibly interesting and wise to say this, but you pay a price. The price is that you can't be the middleman. You can't really find the unity between these two different, let's say, churches, or for that reason, any other difference of opinion. So here are, very quickly, a few practical ways of dealing with that, which I once wrote about. When you disagree, never allow personal hate to enter into the discussion. The moment that you are having personal hate to this person, you can't discuss anymore. And then you are really a fundamentalist in every sense of the word. Are you allowed to disagree? Absolutely, you're allowed to disagree. Therefore, the only effective way to communicate with somebody else is when you do it out of love, in sincerity to the other person with whom you disagree. That's number one. Never lose your patience while you are discussing that with these persons. Never get into shouting business, which so many people do under those conditions. Try to understand the other person's position. Respect it, even when you disagree. Show him validity. Show him the fact that you can understand from where he comes, even when you disagree. Always, not easy, admit when you are wrong. When somebody proves you wrong, you must be able to say, you're right, I was wrong, and that's the end of the notion, the issue. And always, while you are doing this, never lose your own dignity. Never lose your own integrity, because when that happens, it is all over. So did I answer your question? I don't know if I answer your question. I don't know a better answer. But I've learned also from my own experience, when I disagree with people, no doubt, that indeed I try. Not everybody understands it like that, like you do. I do this with the greatest amount of respect for people's point of view. I find it very disturbing that in the Orthodox world there is this issue of black-white, and this is the way how it is, and don't tell me anything else. Why? And therefore we get so many differences which are far from the way how they should be. Chabad, I have tremendous respect for them. If the Chabadniks are going to tell me we are the only official interpretation of the Jewish tradition, I can't go for that, as much as those who oppose Chabad and say it is not even Jewish anymore. That's not for me, and I don't think that is what God has in mind, because Elu ve'elu divrei Elokim chayim. When it comes to the reform and when it comes to the conservative, it gets more difficult, but even there I believe that we can learn a lot from each other. I've read a lot of reform stuff and I've read a lot of conservative stuff, which I fully agree with, and where the critique on orthodoxy is right. But when I disagree, I will tell them that, if it is in a discussion or in the Limud conferences and things like that, I disagree, but always with respect, because I know that these also people are also honest in the way how they see things, even when I really disagree. I hope that somehow I answered your question.